Good evening, sci-fi movie nerds, and welcome to another episode of the Sci-Fi Movie Guy. We're going to be doing our Star Wars Rebels review, Season 3, Episode 15, Trials of the Darksaber. Jason from Trench Run Rebels is going to be joining me in just a second, so watch the preview, and then we're going to start the review.
One, two, three, 4, 5, 6.
The blade feels lighter.
You're connecting with it. It's becoming a part of you. But you cannot rely solely on the blade. You must use all your skills together. Ready position. You'll have to do better. You're not fighting me. You're fighting yourself. And losing. You're not committed to this. You should quit.
I don't quit. I never quit.
We're going to be reviewing Trials of the Darksaber, Season 3, Episode 15. So, just so you know, spoilers, heavy spoilers. We're going to be doing lots of spoilers. Spoiler alerts up there.
Watch the episode first.
Yeah, don't listen to us if you haven't seen the episode.
Yeah.
Jason, what did you like about this episode?
What didn't I like about this episode? Wow. This episode is definitely one that it's going to have to be watched several times. I think when we finish up here, we're going to sit back down and watch it again.
We're watching it
This thing is
immediately.
dense. There's a lot of stuff going on in this episode. Where to start? Let's start with the music.
Oh
The
my.
music of this episode was phenomenal.
And do you remember we talked about the last episode's music as well? Like, the music in these Rebels episode is just getting better and better and better. And I'm not saying it was bad before,
Right.
but they are upping their game.
Definitely. It's Kevin Kiner, I believe, is the musician doing it. And the music is really lending itself to some really emotional moments that happened in this episode.
I go back to Rogue One where I had said some of the musical pieces were a little disjointed, although I liked them. They didn't quite fit with the episodes. These last two Rebels episodes, they've nailed the music to where it should fit into this.
Definitely.
With me, this episode had so much character development. I know it was thrown as a Sabine episode, but to me it was almost a Kanan episode, because Kanan was dealing with Sabine, he was dealing with Ezra, he was dealing with Hera. He had so many moments about learning about himself from Hera so that he could help Sabine.
Right.
I love that.
Yeah, he certainly had to get past some of his own stuff to be able to approach teaching Sabine. Right?
Yeah. And then Sabine, wow. Like at the end of this episode when Ezra says, I would follow you, and I'm not just saying that.
Right.
She just came into her own. Like, now I don't know if she actually defeated Kanan because she tapped into herself and opened herself up, or if Kanan was kind of doing that to egg her on,
Right.
you know, so that she would come to that realization. We probably won't find that out. What's your take on that? Did Sabine actually beat Kanan in a sword fight?
It seemed that way. I mean, that's the way they laid it out in front of us. Whether he didn't expect her to break as much as she did.
Okay.
Like, she was really holding back from even
Her feelings.
allowing herself to feel feelings honestly for herself. And he was poking at her and poking at her and poking at her, and it broke free. And I don't think he was expecting it to break that much. And she certainly overpowered him.
And she opened up to everything she had been feeling for so long, so
Yes.
that she could actually be herself. And yeah, I mean, he said halfway through the episode, they're teasing she's a Force user. And
So
I
they are, yeah.
I right away said, no chance. Like, maybe, like, why don't you tell them what you said about Kanan when he was talking about the Force?
Right. Well, he said that the Force flows through all living things, but you have to be open to accepting it or open to seeing it. And I believe that the way that they tease that with the Darksaber coming from, was it Tal Vizsla?
Yes.
The ancient Jedi Mandalorian warrior. And she's a member of House Vizsla. So she would be a descendant of Tal Vizsla, this Jedi Mandalorian.
Yeah.
So that's opening the door for her to have some sort of Force sensitivity. And then they also teased us with a little bit of Bindu in there. She went and hung out on Bindu unknowing to her and was angry and kind of kicked him and whatever. And she walked away and Bindu kind of sat up and he took notice of the situation. I think that they're... Oh, and one other little thing. The owl that appears on her shoulder, I think Dave Filoni has said that that's kind of an Ahsoka symbol.
Yeah.
And we also saw the owls show up while she was practicing with the practice sabers.
And I would have missed that if he hadn't pointed it out. They were sitting, 3 of them on top of this little ridge, and I didn't notice them, but he did.
So I think they're just throwing all these little clues at us that Sabine has some Force sensitivity, but she's got a lot of work to do.
And what I had said to Jason is I think maybe she could kind of be like Chirrut Imwe, where she opens herself up to the Force and will be able to do more, but I don't think she's going to be an actual Force user. But what's your take on that? Do you think she will?
I think that she has the ability to. I think that, well, how I interpreted what Kanan said, that everyone has the ability to, or at least some sensitivity to it, because the Force is in all living things, but you have to be open to it. And if she can't get past her own stuff, she'll never tap into the Force.
And see, the way that I took it is that anyone can become a Chirrut Imwe if you open yourself to the Force, but not everybody can be a Force user like a Jedi does with pushing. So I think we're still a little split on that, right?
Yeah, well, and it just is left to be seen in the episode itself whether she actually is a user or a believer, I guess, what Chirrut Imwe was.
Yeah. Now, what didn't you like about this episode?
There's not a whole lot that I didn't like. I can't really pinpoint something in particular that I didn't really care for. I mean, the music was great. Again, the graphics and the lighting and everything was fantastic about this episode. I love the character development, like you were saying with Kanan. Kanan grew a lot. Sabine grew so much. Sabine, to me, before even this episode, I didn't really care all that much for her. She was cool, Mandalorian, explosives, but her character was so thin. They're nailing it now. They're saying, okay, from here on out, we've got a Sabine story for you, and it's going to blow you away. And she's climbing up the ranks of favorite characters.
Yeah, and she was always one of my favorite characters, but now, for sure, she's right behind Kanan. She'd be ahead of Kanan if Kanan wasn't blind. But I told you, when Kanan had that blind thing and he's tapped into the Force so much, he's definitely my favorite character. And I loved that this was a Kanan-Sabine episode.
Right.
Loved that. I think Ezra grew a little bit, too, in this episode, which I liked. Right. I mean, when he went and talked to Sabine and, like, they had such a good heart-to-heart, just the emotion of these voice actors and the way they animated it, this was a drama. This was emotion. Everyone wore it on their sleeves. It was an action episode. This is one of the best episodes of Rebels of all time, I think.
I agree.
I don't know if I can say it's my favorite episode, but it's definitely one of the best episodes as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, and again, that character development, and it goes back to, I think in the first couple of seasons, we got to see Sabine do some almost superhuman things. Like the ghost is flying away and she's able to leap up and jump up to and it seemed like, if she's not a Jedi, how in the world is she doing this stuff? Like, normal Mandalorians don't have this ability. So that might have been a foreshadowing or a little precursor to, she does have some sensitivity and she might be able to tap into it to a certain extent, but she doesn't even realize it.
Maybe.
I'm such a great warrior that I can jump.
At the end of this episode, I'm not going to rule it out anymore, for sure.
Right, and I think the fact that we now know that she has that lineage, Tal Vizsla was the first Mandalorian Jedi, and she's a part of that lineage. It's definitely laying it out there.
Before we go, I just want to know, now that we've seen this, do you still? I had this theory that Sabine might be Rey's grandmother, part of the Obi-Wan Kenobi clan.
Right.
Do you think there's any merit to that now that we've seen this and she's part of House Vizsla? And I don't think what was her name that was with Obi-Wan? Satine. I don't think Satine was part of House Vizsla, was she?
Going back, I haven't watched those old Mandalorian episodes in a while, and I need to go back and do that. But I don't think that they ever made a connection between Satine and Pre-Vizsla was the Vizsla at the time.
If you guys watching know this, put it in the comments for us and let us know if Satine was part of House Vizsla. Because otherwise, I don't think there's going to be a connection if there weren't. I think I was just trying to hope.
Right. Well, it seemed that they were making it a little obvious with Satine and Sabine.
Yes.
I mean, they were making those names so similar, it seemed to make it pretty obvious. But I think in either the next episode or a coming up episode, we're going to meet Sabine's mother.
Could be stepmom,
And
though.
it could be stepmom, so it could still be in play, the Satine thing. Yeah, it remains to be seen. I guess Satine... Yeah, I don't know. It's hard to say. I was trying to make a connection there, but I don't know. Unless there was a Satine Pre-Vizsla connection that they just never mentioned before, that they might throw at us now. Who knows?
The one last thing I want to say about this episode before we go is there was just this one little thing where Sabine walks by Chopper and kind of pets him a little bit and he starts purring. And again, that's just, I love Chopper. I love that little guy. He was only in this episode very small, but you know, I just like that. She was like all sad and petted him and he's like, "Urgh." And I love this show. I love this show. If you're not watching Star Wars Rebels, then you're probably not watching this. But if you happen to jump on this by accident, watch Star Wars Rebels. It is fantastic. Jason, what do you give this out of 10?
It's up there. I mean, right now, I'm going to say like 9 out of 10. We're going to watch it again. It might even go higher than that.
I was going to give it a 9 out of 10 too. It was almost the perfect episode.
Yeah.
Just fantastic. So, Jason, where can the good people find you on social media?
Hit me up on Instagram. I'm at Vintage Star Wars. You can follow me, like me, hate me, do whatever. I'm there.
And you can find me on Twitter at MovieGuySci-Fi and email me movieguySci-Fi@gmail.com. And remember, everybody, nerds rule the world.